Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friends. I am so happy to be here with you today as we are embarking on a sort of series today. There's going to be some episodes that are going to be interwoven into other sort of more quote-unquote regular episodes over the coming weeks on the topic of self-love. Next week, I will be doing a kind of bigger overview on what self-love is, where it comes from, and how to, why it matters so much. And then, of course, how to create it, how to develop more self-love in your life. But I also wanted to give you guys all a taste of what it does when one has real self-love, when one has taken the time and effort to develop it in one's own life, and the impact it has on our lives and on our marriages especially. And so I've invited onto the podcast some of my clients to talk about their experience. And today is the first of these interviews. So I can't wait for you to hear Kim's story. I will introduce her in just a moment. But before then, I do want to make sure, if you didn't catch last week's special announcement, I want to make sure you hear about it now, because it's not something you're going to want to miss. And that is that enrollment is open for my new intimate group program for highly sensitive women who want a much more loving, supportive, connected marriage. I am calling this program Treasured Loving Marriage as a Highly Sensitive Woman. And if you've been resonating with anything in my podcast, if you've been getting anything out of it, and you still haven't quite found yourself in the marriage that you want in your heart of hearts, you're definitely going to want to check out Treasured. I have never before offered anything so accessible, so comprehensive, with everything that you need to really change the very culture of your marriage and make it into one that you're enchanted again by and one you feel so loved in. So if you want to learn more and enroll, head over to my website and click the Work With Me :Treasured tab, which you can find at www.lifeisworthloving.com, or you can go to the direct link just here in the show notes for this episode. And I'm just so looking forward to working with this amazing little group that's forming. But let's get started on today's interview. It's got so many golden nuggets for you, so perk those pretty ears of yours. Here we go. Well, we are so lucky to have one of my very, very wonderful clients here to talk about her experience around self-love and how it has impacted her and in her relationship. And she has gone kind of through the ringer. She has been in what I'm thinking of as like a cooker for, either like an experience, actually many months of experience in her relationship that either could have really beat her down, or how she's ended up navigating it. So with so much empowerment, it's actually really allowed her to really rise up and step into so much self-love. So I'm excited to introduce to you my client, Kim. Welcome, Kim. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Hannah, thank you so much for having me on. This is a wonderful opportunity to be able to share my story with everybody, and hopefully it'll be helpful to others as well.
Absolutely. I know it's going to be so helpful. Yes. So Let's just start in the beginning. Let's start way back in the day. Before we started working together, how would you describe your kind of level of self-love? And what was that like for you?
It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it feels like we've been working together for such a long time now because of
Mm-hmm.
how much growth I've had. But I know I could still remember before November how my self-love was. It wasn't as great as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
When my relationship was going through a really tough time, uh, it was I started to feel or have thoughts that I don't deserve to be in a relationship. I don't deserve to be
Mm-hmm.
loved. I'm a bad person. I'm a horrible person for just realizing how I treated my partner last year. And those were some thoughts that were going through my mind. I just felt like I wasn't good enough, and I even had um, I even had some suicidal thoughts as well. Just thinking that I didn't deserve to be here anymore just because of how bad things had been going. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's I thought my self love was good because I'd been working on myself for a long time.
Yeah.
But I hit that point in I think the end of October, November, and I realized that it definitely wasn't where it should be when I
Yeah.
started to have those thoughts.
Yeah. It kind of re-breaks my heart hearing you talk about that time. Yeah. And also just remarkable how far you've come.
Yeah, I had so much shame and guilt for the things that have happened,
Yeah.
not just with my relationship, but with so many other things like family,
Mm,
my siblings. I was witness to horrible events,
mm,
and I used to blame that on myself a lot.
mm.
And my worth was really based on how well I took care of other people.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, as we worked together over time, I remember definitely hearing you say, things along the lines of like, "What's wrong with me? Like, it's something wrong with me that I remember one time specifically, you like, I can't make him feel better, so what's wrong with me, right? Like, really
Mm-hmm.
blaming yourself for other people's experiences. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, early in our time together. Well, I guess I'm curious. Would you be open to saying a little bit about, like, in terms of your relationship, what you were blaming yourself for, why you were thinking in the way you were about yourself?
Yeah, my fiance had shared with me how I was very critical of him and
Mm,
how that made him feel really cut down
mm,
as a man. He felt very inadequate. The way I was communicating my needs was not the best.
mhm,
It came out a lot in anger and comparing him to my ex-husband. And so it wasn't, I wasn't showing up as my best. That's how that showed up, um, partly in my relationship, but also that I was accepting things that I normally wouldn't if I had good self-worth. I was
mm,
kind of letting my boundaries be crossed.
mhm.
So I know that I let myself down by allowing that to happen over the years.
Yes. Yeah. And in terms of it, like, is there anything else that in this period of time when you were really, I want to say, down on yourself? Yeah. What did that, like, how did that affect your relationship? I mean, you just mentioned the boundaries, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
I think I think it's a lot easier for other people to disrespect you, including your partner,
Mm,
when you don't have a good self love or a good self worth.
yeah.
And so that was playing out a lot between the two of us. I was not respecting him,
Mm.
and he wasn't honoring me as well.
Mm. Yeah, and like as we moved through our time together, we certainly saw that it was there was lack of self-worth from both ends, right?
Yeah.
Lack of self-love from both ends. Yeah, so it wasn't just you.
And I relied a lot, I felt like I relied a lot on him to meet
Mm,
my needs.
yes, which is part of like to like if you can look back at your past self, like when you were just talking about being kind of critical of him. You know that I talk about that as kind of a backfiring technique to try to get him to meet your needs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But partially because, yeah, because you weren't really necessarily knowing how to meet your own, right?
Right. Right. I'd always, before him, I was married to someone who was more than happy to fulfill all my needs and validate me and do all that hard work.
Yes.
And so I never had to learn how to do this for myself until I met my fiance, who was not very capable or
Mm,
willing to do that
yeah.
for me. And so I feel like I was forced to learn how to do this.
Right. And this was part of the cooker, right? It wasn't like you're like, oh, I really want to learn self love. It's like,
Yes.
like, bam, now's your chance, honey.
Right. Yeah, right. It was nice to have someone else do it for me, but I'm realizing it's the other side of it is also wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think that was what really compelled you? Like, why did it feel like now I really need to learn it?
I think that when I started to notice myself having those suicidal thoughts,
Mm,
um, I realized there was something very wrong with that picture.
yeah.
That I was worth, I should feel like
Mm,
I should be worth more than my relationship status
mm,
or what, or how well I'm taking care of others.
mm,
But I realized I didn't take care of myself.
mm,
And that led to a lot of issues, just relying on him for putting all my eggs in one basket,
mm,
instead of finding support for myself in other ways.
mm,
Um, and it led to the downward slope of our relationship, when I realized that everything that I was doing was partially because I was leaning on him a lot for a lot of things.
yeah.
And so I felt like I had to change that. I just
Mm,
had more to live for,
mm,
and that I deserved to be here.
mm, mm. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So part of what I'm hearing is that a lot of the a lot of the things that you were experiencing in your relationship some months ago were kind of exacerbated or even brought on in the first place from not necessarily quote unquote loving yourself as well as you could. Yeah.
Yeah, I've really noticed a difference after I began my work with you, in how the way I was taking care of myself and having friendships outside of him,
Mm.
um, made him feel less pressure too. Um,
Yes. I remember
so,
you specifically saying when, like, it was a quote that you said, when I'm fulfilled, I need him less.
mhm. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true, especially now we're doing this interview and I'm actually home for the week with my family and
Mm,
getting to see all my friends that I haven't seen in a
mm,
while. It's been very nurturing, fulfilling.
mm,
Um, and
mm,
it really shows that the more I take care of myself and focus inwards, then I can have more compassion, actually more energy, more patience, for my partner.
mm. I love that. And one of the things that I'm kind of hearing, like, you and I, as we're talking, and this is really for the listeners, is like one of the words you've said is actually a couple of the different words you've said is like when I take care of myself, when I'm doing some good self care. You also mentioned the words or the phrase self worth, and then of course we've used the word self love. And I just kind of want to like make a note that these are different aspects of self love, right? Like self love is a whole lot of things, and we might get into a little bit more of that in a moment. But there are different aspects of self love, right? And there's different ways of living from that self love. And I love it. Do you remember? I'm sure, of course, you remember you wrote that newsletter for your work, and I just loved that. It touched me so much when I read that. That you, in your learnings, you were able to then share with others. And I love how you broke down the categories. You made like a list of what self-love looks like.
Yeah.
And that was just so fun to see. I loved how clearly you put that for other people.
Yeah, I got comments back from that article, and people were saying how it was so necessary, and we sometimes forget about how important we need to give that to ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I loved about that too is, sometimes people think self-love is like selfish or narcissistic or something, but actually like this is such a beautiful example of how when you stepped into more self-love, a lot more self-love, and you learned how to be like self-loving, right? It actually had this beautiful ripple effect and really helped other people, right? In this very, very direct way, not to mention, how it impacted your fiance and your relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. I used to feel like loving oneself was a selfish kind of Western ideal, because I come from an Eastern type family oriented culture. But I switched that now, so I've reframed that from selfish to self-focused, because it just there's so much benefit when we take care of ourselves. Then we can really, really be our best version for other people too.
Totally. So for you, do you maybe have some examples or just want to share a little bit more about how developing self-love and being sort of self-focused in that way how that affected you and your relationship?
I feel so much more empowered to be able to regulate myself when things come up, when there's some difficult situations. I feel more compassionate towards myself instead of how I used to be before, which was very full of shame and guilt. So the way that I'm treating myself and having more patience and understanding when things come up has shifted in a way that therapy had not really helped me with before. And so that's been one example. I know that I've grown because during the course of my work with you, I discovered that my fiance had an affair that happened before the coaching. I truly believe that if I had started my work with you a lot sooner, then we probably would never have gotten to that point.
Yeah.
But I can tell how much I've grown when, after the discovery of the affair, I was able to have compassion for myself. I mean, I go back and forth sometimes, but during sessions, I was able to be reminded to go back to not letting myself down, to being there, and even being able to comfort myself through such relationship trauma. That tells me how much I have really grown even since last summer. I'm no longer the same person. I never thought I could be able to survive such trauma,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I've had friends who've been cheated on,
Yeah.
and it's been years since the event, and I still see them struggling.
Mhm.
Um, it takes a hit on your self-worth, your self-esteem. I mean, just
Yeah.
every area you can think of.
Mhm.
Um, and it's been a few months now, actually exactly 3 months now,
Mm.
um, since I've learned of everything, and I feel like I'm healing in such a different way than they are. And I'm really grateful to see that progress.
Yeah, it's been tremendous and just so beautiful to witness and to be supporting you in that. And I think that's why, I mean, this is really why I was saying like this was a recipe that for many people would be it would beat people so far down, right? And I
Mhm.
know that of course there was a part of that experience for you. It does. It's a stinging, painful, traumatic experience. And I don't know, I keep thinking of the phoenix, like that. It's like it was like an opportunity for you. You took the opportunity to really like I want to say button down, but that's not quite the word, but like to really dive in and like be there fiercely for yourself. And I just have been so impressed by how you use that as an opportunity to be who you want to be, to love on yourself, to take beautiful care of yourself, even when there were hard feelings, right? Like
Mhm.
love definitely doesn't mean we're just we don't have the hard feelings. Like it's so important to have that, or it's such a those hard times are such a beautiful opportunity to give ourselves the love that we need. Yeah.
Right. I would definitely be the first one to say it wasn't easy.
No.
I know in the first few weeks after I learned of the affair, I had a hard time. I did have moments where I would go back, and struggled with shame and,
Yeah.
thinking, what would people think of me? Like that I'm still here trying to make it work with him.
Mm,
I had negative thoughts about, just just the fact that I was still working on my relationship.
mm,
So I allowed those hard feelings, to have a voice, and I think that's
mhm.
very important,
Yes.
to be able to process.
Yes.
I let it happen, even as ugly as it could be sometimes.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
some pretty rough feelings,
Mhm.
related to everything. It was a roller coaster time,
Yes.
but I learned to use a lot of the tools, that I've learned from you,
Mhm.
and it has really been helpful in moving me through this time.
Yeah. And one of the things I've noticed, like, is, and you just tell me where I'm wrong, but I've seen in you some of these moments where you've just sensed, um, I almost want to say, like an immense admiration for yourself that's come up. Like just huge admiration for yourself in moments, right? What moments when you aren't in the harder places, right? But when you're recognizing what you've been capable of and how far you've come and really seeing like almost like seeing your strength and who you really are.
Yeah, I've never really celebrated myself
Mm-hmm.
before. It just feels a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we do that at the beginning of every session, and I
Mm-hmm.
struggled to find something to celebrate myself for. But the more I'm doing it, the more I'm like, oh, that's so critical. I mean, being able to practice gratitude for myself daily is empowering me to have more confidence in being able to navigate situations.
Yes.
And I just haven't had this level of self esteem in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I learned
Yeah.
to develop trust as well in my instincts, or just
Mm-hmm.
developing trust that I will be able to be fine no matter what happens.
Yes. Yes. That's so huge. And one of the other things, if you are open to speaking to it, is what do you see as the impact of this huge up leveling of your self love, your ability to love yourself, how, like on your fiance?
I think that he is really seeing how my self love has led to knowing what I deserve, knowing what values I live by,
Mm-hmm.
and subsequently then being able to establish boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to ask for what I am what I am requesting in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot. It's made a big difference. We used to fight every week,
Mm-hmm.
and now, even since the disclosure of the affair, I feel like we are having so much more authentic conversations. And you can imagine that these conversations could have led to blame. It could have easily led to blaming him or
Yeah.
him blaming me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would just be a cycle that, like, we were in for so many years. Um, but the work I've done on myself has led to honest and compassionate conversations. I mean, it's not perfect. We sometimes, I sometimes get into my feelings too.
Mm-hmm. Of
Um,
course, of course.
but I am a lot better at catching it. And I noticed that he has been expressing his feelings and needs more too, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that he has struggled with. He's, the typical um, man who thinks feelings are weak and he shouldn't talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he definitely has been that way, where he had struggled with being able to describe more than five feelings, five emotions. That's he's just not very good at it. Um, but my work has opened
Yeah.
up his journey into his own healing, looking inwards, being self-aware, realizing how he also needed validation from other people in
Mm-hmm.
his work. And we are really uncovering the root of his insecurities too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
then I'm
It's
just able to just commend him when he does share his feelings with me, and I'm respecting his space more.
mm, yeah.
All of that together has led to very productive, honest conversations that we've never had before.
Mm. It's you're just I'm just being like struck by what a beautiful, exquisite example of leading love, right? Like starting in
Mhm.
yourself and then leading that outward to the relationship. And then of course the example of leading it out to people in your work world and beyond. It's just so beautiful, Kim.
Yes, and towards friends and family, and they are noticing a change in
Mm,
how I am towards them too.
mm, so good. So I'm just so little shivers over here. um, do you have one or two, like for someone who's listening, who might be in similar shoes as you were when we first started working together? Do you have any tips or anything that might help them move more into, and little steps that might help them move more into self love?
I remember that it was really foreign to me,
Mm-hmm.
to this concept of self-love when I first started working with you. It was very difficult to do. I was a little averse to it because I was always just focused on taking care of other people.
Yes.
Um, and so what I really needed to learn was to believe it first. I mean, I've always heard of words of affirmation, or just fake it till you make it, but that doesn't really work for me. So what I really needed to do was just um, to feel the changes in my body when I do something that makes me feel great about myself afterwards.
Yes.
So not just something that makes me feel great, but something that makes me feel great afterwards, because I can,
Mm.
choose to drink or do drugs or something, but
Mhm. Right,
doesn't make you
right.
feel good afterwards.
Right.
So when I do things like go on hikes or grow flowers or connect with my friends and or work out, little I had little goals that I would reach. Because I think that's important too, just celebrating the little things.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
the more I connected with those feelings, the more I could believe that self love was possible
Mm.
instead of just saying it in the
Yeah.
mirror. Is even no matter how trivial I think it may look, like, oh, today I cooked dinner. Today
Yes.
I talked to a friend, and I
Yes.
was supporting them through a difficult moment.
Mm.
Um, so that is something that I really really needed to do. It was just hard for me to believe the words,
Mm.
do the
Yes.
homework assignments
Mhm.
until I really felt it for myself. Just let myself just marinate in how it felt for me to do it.
Mm.
Um,
Yes, I love that. That's such a beautiful key to it, right? Is letting yourself feel it, feel it. And it sounds like just taking, like recognizing those times when you were, or when you could step into feeling it, maybe as part of it.
yes,
Yeah.
that was important. And then I think one of your other assignments was to stop talking down about yourself for like 8 weeks. And I realized that was a little hard because I would just chastise myself for every little thing now that I think about it. And so there was something I picked up, and I think this was one of your podcasts too, something I picked up and then ran with, that helped me in not saying bad things about myself, um, was that I carry a baby picture of myself
Mm.
now on my phone. So
Yes.
anytime I even think about wanting to say something negative about myself, I pull out the picture of myself.
Yes.
And then I would say, okay, well, if you can say that to adult you, try saying that to baby you. Um, and it's hard to. Um,
I
it's
love that.
really difficult to
Yes.
whether it's a baby picture of yourself or pictures of someone that you really love, your friends, your children. I think that that just kind of really puts things into perspective of how the words that we say can be so detrimental.
Mm.
Um, and I use this tool with a lot of my friends when I hear them talking down to themselves. I've used it with my fiance, uh,
Mm.
and
So good.
I'm just like, we never grew out of deserving to be respected and to be loved.
Absolutely.
And so if we wouldn't say that to our younger self or someone we love, why would we say that to ourselves? And
Totally.
so that's been pretty powerful, and it works too. And I'm almost thinking about wanting to say something mean to my partner.
Mm.
I'll pull out his baby picture too. And
Exactly.
I'm like, no, if I won't say that to
Exactly.
him, then I won't say then I won't say that to adult him either. I think it's just, if you grow up in a family and you're a child and you hear negative things said to you daily, you can imagine the difference between that child and one that grows up with hearing loving, supportive comments.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that so much. It's such a golden nugget for everyone listening.
Mhm.
Yes. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious if this work, if this up leveling of your self-love, of self-love, if you think that's really important for other sensitive women, and if so, why?
Absolutely. I know that, as highly sensitive people, we feel very deeply. We feel good, we feel bad emotions, but we also feel love very deeply. So I have learned in my work that the more I can in-source self-love,
Mm,
um, the more I have been able to magnify it to those around me.
mm,
And they may be hurting, and some of them are in need of authenticity and care and compassion,
mm.
even at their worst.
Yes.
And I have just seen the power of using my ability to feel and to help others, um, and to see how they benefit. So even when they make mistakes, just being able to see their humanity, I think, has been such a relief for those around me. They feel accepted. They
Mm,
feel like they can be honest. They feel like they still deserve to be cared for.
mm.
Um, and
Yes.
it helps inspire them to be better people,
Mm.
including my fiance.
Yes. Ah, it's so beautiful. And you're speaking to the essence of what I talk about when I talk about like how, uh, our world needs a sensitive love revolution. And we are
Mhm.
like the gift of our sensitivity is exactly what you speak to, particularly when we have the we believe in ourselves, when we have our own back, when we are loving ourselves, right? That's when that sensitivity can overflow and that love can overflow and that compassion. And that's it's just the world needs that so much. And so do our significant others.
I agree. I feel that I've always been a helper,
Yeah.
because of my highly sensitive nature.
Mm-hmm.
But being in this work has truly taught me, um, the what compassion feels like in order to be able to truly give it to others, and also in a way without overextending myself, because I'm also having self-compassion now too.
Yes.
So so I can set boundaries, and that way I can continue to show up as my best when I know that I love myself enough to give myself, a break if I need to. I'm not just pouring from an empty cup anymore, which is what I was doing before, which is nice, but not the most productive or helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot harder. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Totally. So, how do you feel? Do you feel like coaching with me was instrumental, or and if so, so how? In all of this, in these shifts.
Yeah, so I think I've said this before, but I do feel, that coaching has done more for me in 6 months than 8 years of talk therapy. I've had a lot of trauma, but coaching has been an um, important impetus in how I move through my trauma, and to be able
Yes.
to heal. And I have just learned so many things from coaching that I didn't know before. And even though I don't know what the outcome will be for my relationship, it just feels so much better than it ever has been. And I didn't realize that I would be able to survive, um, major relationship, betrayals. Um, and I know that if I didn't have coaching, I would be such a mess. I wouldn't be able to move through it, without this assistance. I just learned how to trust my instincts, trust myself to be okay, and to beyond that, to even have compassion for my partner for why he did what he did.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned how to express myself in ways that didn't lead to endless fighting. So that was great. Um, and it just has been it has been life changing, and I know that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I wouldn't be here in a way that I'm showing up at my best. And for that, I know that I don't have enough words of gratitude for how much my life has changed.
Oh, I'm gonna cry now.
Yeah, I'm holding back too.
Oh, Kim. Yeah, just so much admiration and love for you. Just it's been such an honor, truly, and to support you. And it's just so wonderful for me to hear. I know right now, like you're such an example, such a beautiful example for other women who might be having a hard time in their lives and their marriages and their relationships. And so I just thank you. I want to thank you so much for being here, being brave and sharing your story with us. Yeah, it means so much to me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much as well for having me here. I hope that it is able to reach a lot of women, and I do agree. We need that revolution. We need as much love in the world as possible, especially during these times.
Yes, so true. And to all of my listeners out there, if you're inspired by Kim's story and you agree that the world could use a revolution of love and your own marriage could use a revolution of love, I have a few words for you. You too can absolutely create this and more in yourself, for yourself, in your marriage. Everyone's journey and story is unique, right? Some people like Kim are rebuilding from a really hard place. Some are already in an okay place in themselves and their marriage, and they come to me just wanting to make their marriage and their relationship with themselves, obviously, as part of this, so much more loving and rich and connected. But as you can see, even those who have gone through something as hard as infidelity can come such a beautifully long way in 6 months when you do this work with me. When you learn these skills and you implement them and you have my loving coaching and guidance. Kim is not an exception to the rule when it comes to my clients. She is the rule. Like, her amazing amount of transformation is the rule, the norm, when clients come to me. And you can have the same experience. You can do the same. This is the kind of transformation that happens when we coach together. And if you're not starting in as hard a place as Kim was when we started together, think about how far you can get in our time together. It will be a revolution. It will be a complete transformation in the best of ways. That's what we're going to be creating in Treasured together. We'll be doing all of this work deeply alongside a few others who are also doing this work deeply. And you're going to get everything you need to make your unique relationship into one you love and you feel so loved in. And just like Kim did, you'll establish an incredibly loving relationship with yourself along the way. All of which you get to keep and enjoy for life. To learn more about Treasured, head to the direct link in the show notes for this podcast episode, or go to www.lifeisworthloving.com/treasured. And I can't wait to meet you and support you on your unique, hugely transformational journey. All right, my friends, be oh so well.